Hi everyone. This will be a little different 3 Mile Domination episode. I just got news this morning that a friend of mine named Naylor just passed away. Those of you in the self-storage community and business, that name might ring the bell. Years ago, he started and ran Storage Marketing Solutions. Great platform that provided training for managers, marketing materials. He was very frequently featured as a speaking guest at the trade shows, very highly involved in the storage industry. Anyway, he sold that company a few years ago, and he took a step back and was doing some other things. And we reconnected ourselves, a year or so ago. And when I was getting things going again with 3 Mile Domination and wanted to run some things past him, get his blessing on some ideas. Honestly, it's what he kind of started and left behind. I wanted his blessing to kind of pick up the torch and carry that on with this kind of content, his trainings, and just providing that kind of a resource. And so we had some great chats, going over everything. It was nice reconnecting with him as a person, not just as a business associate. He was just he was a great guy. So I was just thinking, the best way to kind of honor him, especially in the storage realm, since that's what all this is revolving around, is I went back through the archives. And I've saved everything that he's put out there, whether it be print materials, audio. He just, he came to my office not too long ago and stood right in front of this, and he gave me a long 15-minute testimonial. Something it sounded like he spent months on crafting just the right words, but no, he just ripped it off the top of his head, and he had a way with words, and it was an amazing testimonial that he gave, and this, like I said, kind of giving me the blessing for 3 Mile Domination to continue what he started with training, consulting, and providing content, and I'll be forever grateful for him for that. But anyway, I was going through my archives and came across something called Manager Elite Sessions, something that he put out frequently for the managers and owners alike. And each episode, was unique. And don't know, I pulled up my file, and this is the first one that I clicked on, and it seemed, kind of seemed meant to be. So I'll post that here. It's just audio. Derek wasn't much for being in front of the camera, so this is an audio portion. But please, it's about 15 minutes long. Take the time, listen to his words. You'll get some value out of it. So thanks a lot, Derek.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the April 5th, 2010 Self-Storage Manager Elite session. This is Derek Naylor, President of Storage Marketing Solutions, and I would like to welcome you to this week's session. And this week I want to take a step back and talk about something that I've actually talked about a couple of times before, but as you know, repetition is the mother of all learning. Again, repetition is the mother of all learning, so we're going to be repeating a lot, which, believe it or not, a lot of people have actually been asking for. So we're going to go back and talk about building a connection with customers. But before we do, I want to talk about something that just happened to me very recently and explain to you a little philosophy I have going. Some of you may know, who know me well, that I am a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. Now, a lot of people who have met me kind of are shocked to believe that for some reason, but anyway, I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. I skydive from time to time. I used to race motorcycles, and I recently, in fact, just a couple of days ago, got back from Alaska helicopter skiing. Now, for those of you who don't know what helicopter skiing is, or heli skiing for short, it's basically you go to really rough and rugged terrain where there's no ski resort, and you get in a helicopter and they take you up to the top of the steepest and tallest mountains, and they drop you off and you strap on your skis and you go down. Well, as you might imagine, there are some inherent dangers in such activities, and I do these things not only because I enjoy them, but I do them for a little bit more of a philosophical reason that might sound kind of cheesy or corny to you, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. And that is that it reminds me of how important everything is that we do. When you're skydiving or when you're skiing, heli skiing in Alaska down these steep mountains with high risk of avalanche and cliffs and ice holes and caves all around you, there's really no time to mess around. If you take the wrong action, it usually means death. Not a little injury, but it usually means that I die. And I'm very well aware of the keen risk of doing this kind of thing. And it reminds me that, life is not much different. Now, the consequences are not as strong. However, if you treat them as if they were, you'll be amazed at how much different the results you experience are. This all came rushing back to me. I used to go skydiving about once a year to remind myself of this, because when you're skydiving and you're falling from 12,000 feet, there's a whole handful of things that you just flat out cannot do. And there's even more things that you absolutely have to do in order to survive. Well, I was up in Alaska just last week, and we were skiing along this really, really steep terrain, and the conditions were prime for avalanche. And even though I had all my safety gear on, an avalanche safety pack which blows up like an airbag to keep you above the avalanche, and what's called an avalung, which helps you breathe if you're buried, and harnesses so I could be lifted out by a helicopter and so forth, a transceiver so I could be located. I mean, I took all of the precautions necessary, right? I don't want to take unnecessary risk, but regardless, there's still a chance that things could go wrong, just like there is when you get in your car. But anyway, we were going along this run, and we had a very experienced guide with us, and he said, this run is probably going to slide, which means there's going to be an avalanche on this run. So you have to ski from the top of the run to me, and I'm going to be right around this corner on this cliff, leaning right up against it, which happens to be what he calls the safe zone. If the thing does slide out from underneath you and turn into an avalanche, you're safe right here. So anyway, I was the first one to go after the guide. Naturally, that's where my friends and family put me, right? They say, oh, hey, Derek, why don't you go first? So anyway, I go first, and I go around the corner, and I stopped about 10 feet behind the guide, and I was leaning up against the same rock wall, and he looks back at me, and he says, you need to get up right behind me right now. And I obviously took it very seriously, so I hurried, and I started to ski towards him and get right behind him when all of a sudden the whole thing slid out from underneath me, and an avalanche started and slid down to the bottom of the mountain. Now, had I been where I was, I would have been in the avalanche, which wouldn't have been good. So that little experience that I had, not only did it, it probably would not have killed me, but it could have killed me. That sort of experience reminded me that, had I not taken that action, I could have been in big trouble. And there's certain things in business, especially in sales and marketing, that aren't life or death, but they do have serious consequences, both positive and negative. And taking it that seriously, now I'm not really promoting that you go out and, to treat everything like it's life or death. That would create a lifestyle of stress and anxiety that nobody should have. But I'm suggesting that you consider what price are you willing to pay by not doing something. For example, a question to ask yourself is, should I go out, let's say you're pondering one day whether or not to go out and visit with your alliances in your community. And you don't really want to do it because you don't really enjoy it, and you've got other things you should do, or whatever the reason is. Well, nobody's holding a gun to your head, and you're not going to die if you don't do it, right? But a good question to ask yourself is, sure, this is my choice whether or not I want to do this. How much am I willing to pay to not do this? That's essentially what you're doing. You're paying to not do an activity. Now, if that amount is higher than what you would gain by going out and doing it, then of course you should, there's an opportunity to not do something. But on the other hand, if by not doing it, it's going to cost you a significant amount of money, which is why it's so important that you understand the lifetime value of your customers. Most people don't realize that if they go out and get one customer or begin the relationship with an apartment manager who could be worth dozens of customers over the period of a year, that could be anywhere from $1,000 to $24,000 if they send 24 customers and your average customer value is $1,000. That could be a $24,000 activity that you've just done, which translates into even more money as time goes on through referrals and asset valuation and so forth. We really won't go into, but anyway, that's really enough of that story. I just want you to consider that everything that you do matters. Okay, there's a great book out there called Everything Matters that I recommend that you buy if you're interested in this kind of thing. But everything that you do matters. And as a self-storage manager, one of the things I hear a lot, which is kind of sad to me when I'm at trade shows, is when a manager walks up and says, hi, I'm Bill, or whatever their name is, and you say, hi, Bill, what do you do? And they say, oh, I'm just a site manager. Well, I don't know quite what to say to that because I don't want to sound like I'm reprimanding them for answering that way, but just a site manager is kind of a lousy answer. You have a very, very important job. In fact, every position in a company is crucial to its success, just like every ingredient in a pie is crucial to how it turns out and how it tastes. So I want you to take everything you do very seriously, and you'll notice that when you do, you step up to the next level. The difference between highly, extremely successful people in all areas of life, not just financially or career-wise, but with their families and with their other relationships and other things that matter, is they simply do things that other people are not willing or that they simply don't do. And that's worth repeating. Extremely successful people, usually the only difference between them and unsuccessful people is that the successful people do things that the other people are not willing or able to do. So this ties right back into putting a little bit more emphasis and value on the actions that you do take. And I use the extreme example of me skydiving and skiing because, that's literally life or death in most cases. If you don't take the action, then you're in big trouble. So the same is true with your day-to-day activities. Now, a sale, S-A-L-E, is a very, very fragile thing. And a lot of people don't quite understand why, but it can be, it can either go one way or another very quickly. For example, have you ever been looking to buy something, whatever it may be, that will solve a problem that you have, that will fill a desire or a want that's been occupying your mind? Whatever it is, a car, a piece of clothing, or whatever. My guess is that most of you have, obviously. So let's say that you're at a store that sells that item, and you're browsing through the variations of the product or service that seems to fit the bill. When, just as you think you figured out what you're going to buy, something just doesn't feel right, so you decide not to buy it for whatever reason, okay? Sure, you've been in there. You've been in that situation before where you are at a store, you found something that you want, and for whatever reason, you just don't buy it. Well, the same happens to you as well. When people are interested in storage, things actually might add up. You might meet all of their criteria. The pricing might be the lowest, but for whatever reason, they just don't do the lease. Well, this happens every day in the transactional window that separates consumers and the things that we think we need to buy. A sale is a very fragile thing, as I mentioned, and that's, it can be as fragile as that. There's something intangible. It could be something that the salesperson says to you at the point of purchase. It could be that they have a piece of food stuck in their teeth or their breath stinks. You just don't know. I mean, there's all sorts of various factors that can break a sale from happening. It could be that you have a specific question or your customer has a specific question that they just can't find the answer for. It could be that you suddenly feel that the expense is unjustifiable or any number of logical things. And sometimes there's no logical reason whatsoever. It just doesn't feel right. The salesperson says all the right things, and the product seems to fit exactly what you're looking for. It's the right size, it's the right color, it's the right price, or whatever. It just doesn't make sense, and the sale doesn't happen. Now, if you were asked after that situation why you didn't buy, the money never changes hands, or the money never changes hands from what you're trying to buy to the service. But if you're asked why you didn't buy, you might come up with some surface level excuse. But nailing down the real reason is a lot more troublesome. When evaluating these phone calls that I keep talking about through the call tracking portal and through doing secret shopper calls between a storage facility and a prospective tenant, we hear this happen every single day. Everything seems to be going perfectly, right? Happy customer, happy manager on the phone, pricing seems to be great, everything seems to be perfect, but for whatever reason the lease never gets signed. There are obvious fixes for some of the reasons, like the person just needs to be nice on the phone, or not put them on hold, or not be pushy, or whatever. But a lot of times there's just non-obvious things and you can't really put your finger on it. I personally believe that the reason this is, and some of you might roll your eyes when you hear this, is that there's a missing connection between people. In other words, in those situations where everything adds up but the sale just doesn't close, I believe there's a missing link in our connection with people. In other words, we just don't feel like we can really trust the person selling the product they represent. In other words, sometimes the person just doesn't feel like they can trust you, which is why I talk so much about this. Trust and rapport are essential to making a sale. If the person doesn't trust or connect with you in some way, it's really hard to sell them on anything, especially now that the consumer has so many options to solve their need or want, including other storage facilities. This also seems to explain why you can sell, quote unquote, close the deal without even trying. We hear phone calls all the time where they're talking about the Super Bowl or fishing or whatever it is that they're talking about, and then all of a sudden a lease is signed. They didn't go through any sort of specific formula. There's just a lot of trust and bonding and rapport that was built up, and the person needed storage, and they felt so comfortable that they just bought it and didn't really do a whole lot of micromanagement or deep analysis on the facility. Now, I actually shared this a little while ago with our clients, but one of my favorite songs is called "Come Back to Me" by David Cook, which I should be kind of embarrassed to be a fan of, I guess. I'm not sure. But anyway, David Cook, if you don't know who he is, he won American Idol several years ago. I didn't really follow it, but I heard one of his songs on the radio and I really liked it. And I want to read you the lyrics because it ties right into what we're saying. So they start out and it says, you say you got to go and find yourself. You say that you're becoming someone else. Don't recognize the face in the mirror looking back at you. You say you're leaving as you look away. I know there's really nothing left to say. Just know I'm here whenever you need me. I'll wait for you. So I'll let you go. I'll set you free. And when you see what you need to see, when you find you, come back to me. Take your time. I won't go anywhere. Picture you with the wind in your hair. I'll keep your things right where you left them. I'll be here for you. I'll let you go. I'll set you free. And when you see what you need to see, and when you find you, come back to me. And I hope you find everything that you need. I'll be right here waiting to see you find you, come back to me. I can't get close if you're not there. I can't get inside if there's no soul to bear. I can't fix you. I can't save you. It's something you have to do. So I'll let you go. I'll set you free. And when you see what you need to see, when you find you, come back to me. Come back to me. I'll let you go. I'll set you free. And then it basically goes on, and that's just the chorus over and over again. Now, the key part that has everything to do with what I'm talking about is when he says, I can't get close if you're not there. If you're being somebody else for the sake of putting on appearances, many people can sense that and won't get close enough to trust you with this decision they're making. Now, obviously, if you're, going to be rude or belligerent or whatever, that's not a good idea, but you still need to be nice and be an expert and be who you really are. But it's so important that we connect with our customers and that we take this one step seriously. And you will notice that many of the problems you may be experiencing frequently on phone calls will just go away. They'll disappear into thin air. Now, I know that I've talked a lot about building trust and rapport with our customers and with our prospects, and I apologize if it's boring you to death, but this is one of those details that when I started out by saying that every action you take is important, this is one that is very important. Now, again, it's not life or death, but choosing not to pay attention to this can be very costly to you. And if you'll work very hard on befriending the people and building trust and rapport, and if you don't, I go over very specific steps on how to do that in session number 1, actually. So if you don't know how to do that, go back and listen to that session. One of the best lines that I've heard, just to give you a specific tip, is when at the beginning of a call, let's say someone calls and you answer the phone and say, ABC Self-Storage, this is Derek. How can I help you? Or however your greeting goes. And the person says, hi, I'm calling. I need storage. I'm looking for a 10 by 10. One of the best techniques that I've heard is to say, yeah, no problem. I'd be glad to help you with that. Okay, so kind of a relaxed, cool sort of response. And then say, let me just open up my computer here, or open up my pricing document or whatever it is that you're using. And while you're doing that, just pause for a second and say, oh, by the way, my name's Derek. What's your name? Don't say, can I get your name, please, or something that's really official sounding. You want to sound like, again, like the example I used in the first session is like you're at a bar or a social gathering or a cocktail reception or something like that. You don't go, may I please have your name? You say, hey, I'm Derek, by the way. What's your name? Real casual like. And that's a great icebreaker for the start of a conversation. Now, if they say, oh, my name's Bill, you say, oh, great, Bill. Are you from around here originally? Or, something like that. And really kind of just divert the conversation a little bit from the structured sales side. Now, there's literally probably thousands of techniques that you could use to establish that trust and rapport and that friendship. But if you're looking for a specific example that's easy and fits most personality types, that's it. Just simply say, oh, by the way, my name's Derek. What's your name? Even if you've said your name in the greeting, hello, this is Derek at ABC Self Storage. How can I help you? Or whatever you say, just go ahead and say it again. Say, by the way, my name's Derek. What's your name? And most of the time they'll give you your name and say, hey, that's great. Are you from around here? I just live here at the facility. And try and strike up a little conversation. And they might say, yeah, I actually live up on XYZ Street. Oh, that's fantastic. It's a beautiful neighborhood. And you'll be surprised how much that lowers the barrier. So anyway, I hope you found this helpful. Next week we're going to talk a little bit more about criteria extraction. We're going to be, just for reference sakes, we're going to be going over the sales process. Again, the main purpose of Self-Storage Manager Elite is to get those sales conversion numbers up, which we've already had a huge amount of success with. Some people have already doubled their conversion rate. But we want to go back and revisit this thing, and we'll take different angles at it to help you maybe gain a new level of understanding. It's kind of like reading a book. You may read a 300-page book and get one little nugget out of it that was in 1 or 2 pages. But without reading the whole book, you might have not found that golden nugget in that, hidden in those 300 pages. So hopefully each session that you're listening to, you're getting a good golden nugget. Hopefully something's, jarred loose for you today in this session. But anyway, again, if you have questions, just send them to AskDerek at StorageMarketingSolutions.com. That's ASK, D as in dog, EREK at StorageMarketingSolutions.com. And we'll go ahead and answer those. Otherwise, have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.